Yo, what's up guys, I'm Nuo, and today I'm going to be showing off the build I plan on taking into Vault of Glass on day 1. I should note that this build revolves around the new broken Hunter Exotic Star Eater scales that released this season. Currently it is extremely overpowered and there's a high likelihood it is either nerfed or disabled for or before the day 1 race, but if this exotic is not touched, then this is definitely going to be the build I plan on using. This is a multi-purpose build that you should be able to use in every single encounter in the Vault of Glass. The build revolves around the power and endgame of the Revenant Hunter subclass. I will be using Grim Harvest to allow me to create Stasis shards when I defeat slowed or frozen combatants, as well as Whisper Shroud so my dodge slows targets around me. That pairs well with Grim Harvest because when I dodge near enemies and kill them, I get a shard. For my fragments, I'll be using Whisper of Hedrons, Whisper of Rhyme, and Whisper of Bonds. Whisper of Hedrons will allow me to get a 25% damage bonus whenever I freeze a target. Whisper of Rhyme will allow the Stasis shards my Grim Harvest aspect creates to give me an overshield that lasts for 10 seconds. And Whisper of Bonds will allow me to get my super up really quickly when defeating frozen targets. We'll be using Cold Snap Grenade because it pairs nicely with all of my fragments and aspects, specifically Whisper of Bonds. And then we'll be using Gambler's Dodge because having my melee up is going to be more important than reloading my weapons. From the artifact, we'll be using the 6 energy mod Glacial Inheritance, which goes on your class item. This allows me to regen up to 50% of my super when I clear adds with it. So it'll allow just more super uptime, which is going to be benefited by the Star Eater scales. As I mentioned earlier, this exotic is really busted right now. I'm fully expecting a nerf, but if it does not get nerfed, this will be a staple in my build. So whenever I cast my super with 4 stacks of Feast of Light, I get a 60% damage buff that lasts between 13 and 14 seconds. So that's why it's very important to have my super up at all times with Glacial Inheritance. That also contributes to the hybrid factor of this build because it can be used for both ad clear as well as DPS encounters. Currently there's no other buff in the game nearly as potent as Feast of Light, and it's clearly a bug. The 60% damage buff to your weapons, while it's intended to buff your super by 60% for like Golden Gun or something, it's definitely not intended to buff your weapon damage after a tether or a stasis super. As for combat style mods, we're just going to go the basic route of using Taking Charge and Protective Light. Survivability is super important, and those are very easy mods to get value out of. And then we'll pair that with Global Reach, Rage of the Warmind, and Wrath of Rasputin to allow our Warmind cells to be super strong and create more Warmind cells. It also allows Xenophage to create Warmind cells. If you've never seen the combination of Rage of the Warmind and Wrath of Rasputin, basically when you blow up a Warmind cell, the solar damage the Warmind cell does due to the Rage of the Warmind mod has a chance to spawn Warmind cells due to the Wrath of Rasputin mod. So basically, Warmind cells create Warmind cells. We'll be using the Eiklos SMG because it can make Warmind cells, but there's a good chance that I'm going to feel like I need more range during any of the encounters. So I have a scout rifle on me with the Vouchsafe, but I also have a bunch of pulse rifles that I can choose from if I need to. Last, we'll be using the Succession to deal with all those hobgoblins in the first few encounters. As for armor perks and stats, I wanted to go with 100 recovery to keep my survivability up, and then I focused on my mobility and intellect outside of that. My stats aren't the best right now, but they're good enough. They're not going to make or break a run. So I've got a mobility mod on, recovery mod on, another recovery mod on, and I believe this is a half strength mod to get my strength up to 13. Yes. I did not focus at all on strength. If you want to focus on strength with this build, that's totally fine because the melee on the Stasis Hunter is super strong, but at the end of the day, it's not necessary. My armor perks complement my machine gun as well as my sniper, but because this is a 6-man activity, at least 1 or 2 of people on my team are going to be running special finisher pretty much at all times, so I'm not really too worried about my special ammo economy, primarily just my heavy ammo. So Machine Gun Finder and Machine Gun Scavenger should help with that. I'm also going to be using Recuperation because the Star Eater scales allows me to pick up a bunch of orbs, so why not heal when I pick up the Void Damage Resistance and Concussive Dampener is the play. Pretty much all of the enemies in VoG deal void damage, so void is super strong, as well as concussive dampener just because Concussive Dampener allows you to survive lots of different splash damage. I've got Anti-Barrier Scout on if I need to. These mods will switch depending on whatever my primary weapon is. I can take Focusing Strike off and put on Submachine Gun Loader if I'm using my SMG. And I also can throw on Overload SMG depending on where the champions spawn within the encounters. I've also got Bomber on my class item because this will allow me to get my Cold Snap Grenade up more often, which gives me the Whisper of Hedrons perk for 10 seconds, the damage buff, as well as it gives me Stasis Shards whenever it's killed, which if I collect gives me an Overshield. So the more abilities I have up, the better. Now, if once we get on to Templar, if the damage check is real and it's very difficult to DPS, then I will be switching off of Xenophage and onto Royal Entry with Izanagi for more DPS. But if DPS is not something we need to worry about, I'll probably stay on this build as it's just pretty simple and I can kind of survive pretty easily with this. Rocket launchers aren't super ammo efficient, so unless absolutely necessary, I'm probably not going to switch onto it. I've also got the 7th Seraph Saw in backup just in case ad clear is an issue and I really need a slight... If my submachine gun isn't cutting it, I always have the machine gun to throw on. I've also got Bastion, because who knows how good Bastion would be for taking out oracles. And then I've got Wither Horde and Heritage, just because those are strong weapons. For the next portion of this video, I'm just going to show how I calculated the damage values of the Star Eater scales with all the buffs and everything that you'll be getting, and really show how overpowered these boots are going to be. So there you have it. Star Eater Scales is extremely overpowered and is going to be super strong if not touched before day 1. However, I will be uploading alternate builds for Hunter in case it does get nerfed, as well as builds for other classes, because I don't think you want to be doing the raid on 6 Hunters, even if the DPS is the best. There are other aspects of other characters that are going to be more beneficial than pure DPS. But thank you guys so much for watching, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe. I'll be uploading those other builds over the next few days before the raid releases, and then I'll be streaming the raid race live on my Twitch, which is twitch.tv/NewoX. As always, have a good one.